Good morning. My name is Kimberly Craig. I'm the president and CEO of the Monterey County Business Council. Monterey County Business Council is a membership-based organization that works together with private business, the public sector, and nonprofit organizations. We are always looking to expand our network, so if you think we're doing good work here, we would love to have you as a member. Our membership applications are online at www.mcbc.biz. We are in our fourth week of continuing our commitment to communication with you. When you registered, you gave us your email address. We will have more of these free webinars over the next couple of months, and we will let you know of upcoming discussions on small business opportunities such as this one. I do want to thank our partners, the Small Business Development Center, the City of Salinas, and the County of Monterey. They've been incredible partners. Additionally, I have to give a shout out to Luis Alvarez of Alvarez Technology Group. The team over there is producing the webinar today. I want to encourage you to ask as many questions as you want today. There's a chat feature on the right side of your screen where you can ask questions. We're also recording this webinar, and we will send you a link with the recording so you can review today's webinar. We will also send out the contact information for our speakers today. And with that, let's take a look at our agenda. So we have today, we are starting with Darby Marshall, an analyst for the County of Monterey. He's with the Economic Development and Housing Office. He'll be covering Monterey County's Microloan program. Then we will head into the COVID-19 Relief Fund with Dan Baldwin, the President and CEO of the Community Foundation of Monterey County. And then we'll hear from Frank Geisler, President and CEO of the Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce. He's going to be going over the brand new Monterey Peninsula Small Business Relief Fund. And then we will have time for questions, and we have Cindy Marzon, the Director of the Cal Coastal Small Business Development Center, to help answer those questions. So with that, I'd like to start and welcome Darby Marshall with the County of Monterey's Economic Development and Housing Office. Darby?
Good morning. My name is Darby Marshall. I am with Monterey County's. Can we get the first slide up first, please? Wait. I'm Darby Marshall. I'm with the county's Office of Economic Development and Housing. The County Board of Supervisors started a small business revolving loan fund about 40 years ago. And we currently have about $550,000 available to loan. Last week, the Board of Supervisors, second slide, there we go, modified the program so that we can do smaller microloans with 5-year terms at 2.44% interest today. The payments are deferred for 9 months, and then it's amortized over the remaining period. We also can do loans up to $250,000, but that takes a more in-depth underwriting. The whole idea here is we want to help small businesses quickly with their working capital needs. And to do this, we are running a fairly expedited process through our loan program administrator, California Coastal Rural Development Corporation. So far, they have processed, I want to say they're up to 5 loans so far. And just over the 100,000 has been lent out. We think we can help another 23 businesses, and if there is more demand, we will continue to look for additional opportunities to recapitalize the program. Basically, if your business is in Monterey County and you employ between 2 and 10 people, your annual revenue is less than $2 million, and you've been in business for a year, and have some kind of a feasible plan for post-disruption recovery, and you're current on your federal taxes, you're eligible for our program. We are really looking at small businesses, not the way the SBA defines them, but small businesses with, like I said, no more than probably 10 employees and annual revenue of less than $2 million. Pretty quick application. Cal Coastal can work with you on that. And if we can see the next slide, there we go. There is the information for Cal Coastal. You can get all the information on their website, or you can give them a call, and a loan officer can get back to you and walk you through the process. if you have questions or ways that we might improve the program, feel free to get a hold of me. I do the administrative work. Cal Coastal does all the heavy lifting with small businesses. So that's all I have. So I can stick around and take questions at the end.
Excellent. Thank you, Darby. I appreciate it. We do have one question for you. The question is, are local nonprofits eligible?
Not right now. Unfortunately, the way that this fund was established, no, they're not. So we're working on trying to find a way to fix that, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate you sticking around towards the end. If people have additional questions, we'll be sure to pull you into the conversation for some answers. So thank you. Next up, we want to introduce Dan Baldwin, President and CEO of the Community Foundation of Monterey County. They are doing great work in our community, to talk about the COVID-19 Relief Fund. Welcome, Dan.
Dan, you're muted.
So I can only follow one instruction at a time. 10 minutes ago, I was told to mute. You know, come on, that tomorrow I can do something else. Good morning, everyone. Dan Baldwin, Community Foundation for Monterey County. I think we all know in our community the role that philanthropy can take in mitigating needs in real times of stress, and this is no different. The Community Foundation has traditionally started funds in the face of disasters, and up to this point, it's really been natural disasters. The Sobranes fire, the Pfeiffer Bridge going out in Big Sur. So in this case, we started the COVID-19 Relief Fund, and if you could just hit next slide, Lewis. The logo that you'll see in our advertising is you got her, Lewis? Next slide. There we go. The logo. This is the logo that you'll see either in the Weekly or the Pine Cone or the Herald that really indicates how to give to the COVID-19 Relief Fund. So this disaster, if you want to call it that, I think we can all call it that, is a little bit different because we're all affected. Typically, philanthropy operates in the face of a disaster where the community that's not affected gives to the community that is affected. Well, in this case, we're all affected. And so we weren't real sure how much response there was going to be when we started this fund, but in fact, there's been quite a large response. I'm going to talk a little bit now about the giving into the fund. People are always curious as to where the money's coming from, and then I'll shift and talk about where the grant dollars are going to. So if you could hit the next slide, Lewis. So we started the relief fund actually 2 days before, well, 3 days before shelter in place started. I got a call from Steve John, the CEO of the Monterey Peninsula Foundation, and he suggested that we go together. So this fund was actually started as collaboratively between us and the Monterey Peninsula Foundation, who pledged an initial $200,000 to get it started. We obviously had been talking about starting a fund, trying to figure out what our role could be. And then when I got that phone call from Steve, it really helped launch it. The next day, we reached out to our donor advisors, and donor advisors are people who have started funds at the Community Foundation that out of which they get to recommend grants, and they're pools of money that people oversee. And the great thing about donor advice funds is that it's capital that's already been given. So the people have already gotten a tax deduction. It's there. It doesn't take money out of their checking account or anything, and it's just there to be granted. And so So I sent an email to all our donor advisors asking them to make what we would call an interfund transfer from their donor advised fund to the COVID-19 relief fund. And I was very pleased that within 30 minutes, we got our first donor advised fund transfer request, and it was for $100,000. So that really told us that people were going to be interested in supporting the fund. So as of end of day yesterday, we had about $2.447 million that had been given or pledged to the fund. Over $1 million of that comes from inside the community foundation. About $600,000 has been given by our donor advisors. That number will go up because in a couple of weeks we'll reach back out to them and ask them to consider making another transfer. Several have made more than one transfer, by the way. And then we've used $250,000 of our own discretionary assets. This is money that we have from our endowments that would be available to grant in 2020. And then we had an internal fund that was overseen by a group of donor advisors, and they transferred 156. And then what's not on here, we have a Latino philanthropy initiative, Siembra Latinos, and they moved $15,000 into the fund. So next slide, please. So private foundations like Irvine Packard, Sunlight Giving, the Claire Giannini Fund, Nancy Buck Ransom, and then including Monterey Peninsula Foundation and Cal Wellness, and then the Antero Foundation, which is a corporate foundation. They've actually stepped up and contributed $715,000 into the fund. And I think everybody should realize these are entities, a lot of them almost all of these are not located here, but they're giving into our fund to support Monterey County. And I think that's something that we should all be very appreciative of. We do have corporate and local organizations that have contributed. There's a couple of $50,000 gifts in here, so it's not insignificant, but Era Energy, the Rotary Club of Monterey's Martin Hurd Fund, United Way of Monterey County, Salinas Rotary Club. So you can see sort of the variety of organizations that have decided to support this fund. And then we've received around 400 gifts from individuals and donor advised funds held like at Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard. Some of those have been significant. There's been a $100,000 gift that came from a Schwab fund. So the level of giving, it's coming from all over. People recognize the need. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but I thought everyone would be interested to see what are these sources? Where's the money coming from? So Lewis, can you hit next one, please? If you have an interest in giving to the fund, you can just Google, or just our website, cfmco.org, but the actual link directly to the fund, to the Donate Now page, is there. Our Vice President for Philanthropic Services is Christine Dawson. You can reach out to her. You can reach out to me. All this is easily accessible just on our website. We obviously take checks. You can use a credit card right on the website. We are getting gifts of stock into the fund. I mean, even though appreciated stock feels like a rare commodity right now. And then people can also use their qualified charitable distributions from their IRAs. We have been getting some of those. Now, most of our operating revenue comes from fees on funds, and we don't charge fees on any disaster fund. So 100% of what's donated will get granted. All right. So Lewis, can we do it again? There we go. So we had to set up a grant program because we've brought in $2.5 million. You have to have an orderly way to move the money out into the community. And we did this in the first 2 or 3 days of the fund. We had money. We were making grants within 4 or 5 days of starting the fund. These are the primary criteria, or these are the criteria. And you can see the first one is to assist nonprofits serving vulnerable populations with basic needs, food, housing, living expenses, transportation. And then we have other criteria. One is that assist nonprofit organizations experiencing staffing or other volunteer gaps, which we would consider sort of stabilization grants. And also item 5 would be a stabilization grant. We've barely gotten through priority 1. The needs are so great right now. There are vulnerable communities, vulnerable populations in Monterey County, and the vast majority of our grant dollars are going straight to the organizations that serve those populations. But the grant application is only 4 questions. It's very easy. We turn them around in a matter of days. I have the final approval on these grants. They get ratification by the board. We have a very efficient internal system that is really just trying to push this money out the door as quickly as we can, but yet as responsibly as we can. So next slide, Lewis. So this number changed by $70,000 yesterday, so it's just slightly now over 1.5 million. And so this is 1.5 million granted, ostensibly in the last 4 weeks for this. So the number of grants now is about 70, and the grant sizes range from 5,000 to 50,000. Next slide. So you're probably all wondering, like, well, where are these grants going? So like Central Coast VNA, it's actually buying supplies for their clinicians to go into individual homes and be able to follow safety protocols. I think we've all been hearing about the food shortages at the food bank. We've made 3 $50,000 grants there. Our donor advisors just outside of this program have also granted about $100,000 to the food bank. So in the last, say, 4 to 5 weeks, we've sent $250,000 to the food bank. Next slide, please. Then you can see, again, what are the nature of the needs that we have in our area. Well, I do want to point out that we do have sometimes money that comes in has some priorities that we need to follow. And so this is why, if you were to look at our list of grants, it's like, well, how did the Monterey Museum of Art and how did the symphony get in there? Well, that's because of dollars that flowed into the fund had these 4 organizations as top priorities, even though the Salvation Army obviously would be a top priority under our in our list of criteria. So Lewis, can we do next one? All right, so I gotta expand this puppy. All right, so if you go under our website, you can see the grant guidelines, and I don't know if there's any nonprofits on the call. Typically, they track us pretty closely, as you can imagine, but it's all very clear on there on how to access the grant program. All right, so Lewis, next slide, please. So just in general, our grant making from our donor advice funds doubled in March over the typical March number for the past 3 years. It will do that again in April. And the donor advice funds to direct COVID was another $230,000 to agencies on the front lines. Over $1 million grants from our community impact grant program will be approved in May. So we're trying to actually retain some sense of normalcy and have our regular grant programming going on. Last year, the Community Foundation granted $19.3 million. That was a record for us, and this year we clearly will go beyond that. All right, next slide. So if you have questions about grant making, Laura Lee Alexander, our Vice President of Grants and Programs, is the contact, and she is overseeing the COVID-19 Relief Fund grant making. In general, we're just here to provide as much support to rally and marshal resources, and then have a very efficient program that gets money to nonprofits that are working directly with our most vulnerable populations. And this one is so much different in that typically after a natural disaster, you just get your arms around it, you quantify the nature of the need, you quantify the size of the disaster, but this is unfolding right in front of us. And also typically with disaster grant making, you try to pace it out a little bit. You try to hold some, grant some now for particular purposes, and then hold some later for the after effects and the recovery. But for right now, we're just granting, and because we don't know when we're going to move into more of a recovery phase. And so we are just trying to create as much impact as we possibly can. So thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. I don't know, Kimberly, if you want me to, if there are questions now, and if there aren't, I'm happy to turn it over to Frank Geisler, who the Community Foundation is working with to establish the Small Business Relief Fund.
Thank you so much for your time, Dan. Just a quick acknowledgement. We do have a couple of questions, but I think we'll save questions to the end. And I would like to take a moment just to introduce Frank Geisler, President and CEO of the Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce. Welcome.
Thank you, Kimberly, and welcome and good morning to everybody. My name is Frank Geisler, President and CEO of the Monterey Peninsula Chamber. And you a new program that we started in conjunction with Dan Baldwin and Community Foundation for Monterey County. So before that, I wanted to, next slide, please, Louis. I'd like to briefly reintroduce to some of you what the Chamber is all about and what the origins are. This is an independent chamber, so that it's not depending on any municipalities. It's 112 years old. It was started as Monterey Chamber, but it expanded to the footprint that we have today, from basically from Marina to Big Sur, including some unincorporated area, Big Sur, Carmel Highlands, Pebble Beach. And it became the Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce in 1982. So next slide. This is a 501c6 as a business association, so we just depends on dues, membership dues, events, sponsorship, grants. That is basically all that we have in terms of our income. Just before, you went just one too quick. Before. Okay, so we have about 700 members. We are governed by a board of directors of 18 people, and we have 4 staff members. And a bunch of committees that are very active, particularly in terms of, support to business and economic development. So economic vitality. We have a great government affairs representation and also education workforce development. So next slide, please. This is our mission. So we're here to support our member success. And today I would say we're here to support even non-member success. When I say member, that means business, nonprofits, even individual. We're not tied to one segment of the industry. This is the overall industry, whether it's the local cleaners or the tire shop or the large hotel or golf course. And we're also here to promote the regional economy. Next slide, please. So March 17 became, of course, the shelter in place, but really before that, we started to see some of the effects of COVID-19 coming to us. So I just want to list a little bit what we did as far as the chamber is concerned, starting that day up to now. We had a very, very good relationship with the city of Monterey before that, but since that day we started daily contact with the with the city manager and his staff, and this is, to update and to share information in both ways and ideas. It proved to be extremely fruitful. We also always had a very good relationship and alliance with the hospitality industry, particularly with the CVB, which is Conventions Visitor Bureau, and with the Hospitality Association. That has been reinforced since then with weekly calls. We talk and interact on an ongoing basis to promote the same message and the same purpose of our organizations. Locally, all chambers of commerce are basically in support of each other. We are connecting, we are sharing information, we have the same mission. So whether it's us or Pacific Grove or Carmel Valley, Big Sur, we're all on the same team. We outreach to local elected officials and public about what's going on a daily basis. We also created a business roundtable, which meets once a week on the phone. And we have about 50 leaders in business, nonprofits, local government, and we discuss strategies. We also have different ideas, and we know what's going on now, or we know what's going on from the county to the health department to the medical professions to everything surrounding human resources or legal strategies or even financing strategies as well. We are starting, and we created a day one committee to start a business recovery plan, and this is evolving as we speak into something really interesting regarding a consolidated plan for all industries. Next slide, please. And then it comes down to what we're talking about today, particularly the creation of a Monterey Peninsula Small Business Relief Fund at Community Foundation for Monterey County. Dan Baldwin, that you heard before, gave me a call one day and he said, I've had this experience in a previous region where he was also the CEO for the local foundation. And he had a plan after a flood in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where he was able to raise substantial amount of money and work in partnership with the local chamber. So he said, it works. I have the template. I have the experience. I know this is something that can be in practicality helping. So why don't we put this together? And we agreed, finally put together and opened that account with the community foundation. This is early April. And here's the purpose: is to accept donations, charitable donation, to be applied to a grant program established by us, the Chamber of Commerce, distributed to all the small businesses that are affected by the COVID-19, particularly targeting small businesses that may have applied to other sources of funding, SBA, local, other things that can be helping them in the long run, but they're particularly in need of emergency funding while those loans are being funded. We field calls every day here at the chamber asking for exactly what this is all about. The business is closed. They need to, sometimes they continue to pay their employees, or they have fixed costs and rents. They've applied to SBA loans, but don't have, the means to face those costs. So there is a great need for emergency funding. So this is a non-endowed special purpose fund and is allowed under the IRS guidelines to be given to for-profit organizations. So any portion of the fund is available for granting. And of course, as before for COVID-19, Community Foundation, who usually charges a fee for handling this, is waiving all the fees. So everything that comes into the grant is given out. So earlier this week, late Tuesday night, I would say Wednesday morning early, go back. No, okay. So the city of Monterey decided to allocate $1 million to this purpose. We'll talk a little bit about the breakdown of this, but we may also, the account may receive other funding in the form of private donations from individuals or other foundations, and other municipalities on the Monterey Peninsula can also participate. You've heard about how to participate in donating, cfmcoorg, or mailing a check or calling. Next slide, please, Louis. So how does this work? Here's the process before. One slide before, Louis. The Monterey Peninsula Chamber is developing the criteria right now with the Grants Committee. We will have an online application at our website. It's not available now because we're still in the process of doing this, determining exactly the guidelines. We are also forming a committee to review the application and to designate who will receive the grants. Then once this is done, we'll request distribution from the fund, and then we'll disperse the grants to the grantees. This is what the chamber will do. It's very important for you to know that because it just started, we do not expect anything to happen as just explained before mid-May. We wish we could do this right away. It is not physically possible. Next slide, please. Because it's funded primarily for now by the city of Monterey, they have their own role in this, is that they limit grants and also loans to the limitation of their city limits. Internally, they have a committee to ratify the grants and the loans. This is currently the mayor, vice mayor, and the city manager. And in cases of a loan, they administer the underwriting and the overall mechanism of the loan. So for example, out of that $1 million coming from the city of Monterey, half of it will be devoted to grants. The other half is tied to a savings account that they have for coastal capital improvement. So this money needs to stay basically within the city coffers, but it can be applied to loans. And the geographical limitations for these are basically the coastline and wharf number 1, wharf number 2, Cannery Road. So again, timing of this, once we have all of the information and the committees, the timing will be mid-May so 3 weeks from now. The process in general, aside from the city of Monterey, the process is that we can afford throughout the Monterey Peninsula, from Monterey, from Marina to Big Sur. It's also maybe donor restricted. For example, if the city of Seaside comes to the fund and say, here's a certain amount of money, but it needs to be restricted to businesses within the city of Seaside, the community foundation and the committee, the grants committee will of course restrict it to those businesses in that city. We may have the same with a donor that would say, listen, I'm interested in the small business in my neighborhood or in my city or in my area. Of course, we need to honor those criteria. Who do we target? Specifically small businesses, which means it's going to be determined by the criteria, but this is what it is. It's not designed to help giant corporations or large franchises. This is for the individual small businesses that provide basically the canvas of the industry in this region. And they need to be, of course, affected by COVID-19, and they need emergency funding. As I said, this is in the process of the criteria being developed, but I can assure you that this is going to be the target. Amounts of grants loan, $5,000 to $25,000. Once again, this is part of the guidelines and so forth. Emergency funding is needed. I say that because it goes both ways. Emergency funding is needed into the fund and out to the small businesses. We don't want to see the collapse of the small business community of the Monterey Peninsula. Of course, we're depending in a great manner by what happens in the hospitality industry. And you can see when that industry crashes like we see now, everything else is affected. Even the nonprofits, as Dan Baldwin explained before. So we don't want that to see under our collective watch. This would be a disaster. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Frank. We really appreciate you being here. We will go ahead and move on to our question portion of the webinar. We do have a few questions for each of you. So also, if I could have Darby unmute his microphone, we want to start with a couple of questions for the county. Let's get up here. We have about 13 questions that are being asked right now. So first question for the County Microloan Fund, are local nonprofits eligible?
Not right now.
Okay, thank you. For the Monterey County loan, if you have no employees because you are seasonal but 2 owners, do you still qualify?
We'll look at it on a case-by-case basis. It gets back to one of the funding difficulties I have, because this is federal funds. They said that we're not supposed to count the self-employed in this. It's an old program. It hasn't been updated for the current situation, but we'll look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. This question is for Dan. If we were declined from the COVID-19 Relief Fund, is there a possibility to reapply?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question, because I probably left that out of my presentation. Not only can you even if you've gotten a grant, you can reapply if the need is there. One of the things that we're hoping is that as money comes in and we do maybe see some light at the end of the tunnel, we're going to revisit some of the applications that, especially for stabilization, that we had declined. But yes, absolutely, they can reapply. Oh, and a list of our grants are on our website. It's all, there's a lot of transparency. So if someone just wants to see a list of all the grants that we've made through the Relief Fund, easily found on our website.
Great, thank you, Dan. Back to Darby. The question is, there's a person with a company with their last payroll had 13 people on it. They weren't sure if there was any room, since there's a qualifier that the county microloan is between 2 and 10 people. Wondering if you can just confirm that those are hard numbers.
No, it's not a hard number. It's a guideline. We really want to try to help those businesses that may not have an established banking relationship with a bank that is doing things like the Paycheck Protection Program. So the 10 was kind of pulled out of thin air. So we will consider everything on a case-by-case basis. So yeah, 13, 14, 15. Call CalCoastal. They'll get a hold of me after they've looked at what you're using the money for, and we'll make a judgment decision. And that's really what this is going to come down to. But keep in mind, we're running low on funds, so the sooner you get a hold of CalCoastal, the better.
Thank you. Dan, 2 questions for you. Number 1, can schools and PTAs apply?
Probably not. This would be for private 501c3s.
Okay. Second question, if you are a nonprofit but do not serve vulnerable populations, for instance, we are in education, is there any reason to apply for the COVID-19 grant?
Well, it's kind of as I said before, the higher priority is going out to serving vulnerable populations, but as the fund continues on and we find that there's more capacity to give other stabilization grants, then that opportunity will be there. So can I pop in one additional thing on top of what Frank said? The Small Business Relief Fund is a charitable fund, so people can make contributions into that through the community foundation and get a tax deduction for doing that.
Great point. Thank you. This question is for Frank. Are local nonprofit organizations eligible for the chamber grants?
Well, I think the purpose of the Small Business Relief Fund is to affect small businesses. And I think I would refer them to the COVID-19 Relief Fund from the community for nonprofits.
Next question, I'm actually going to ask it of both Dan and Frank because it's an interesting question. And there's we've had several people ask, can 501c6 nonprofit organizations obtain relief funds? 501c6 nonprofits are membership-based organizations.
So they are not eligible from the COVID-19 Relief Fund. Those are going to 501c3s. The only way that a C6 could receive a grant from the Relief Fund is if they have developed a program that is directly impacting vulnerable populations.
Thank you. And Frank?
As I said before, we are establishing the guidelines right now. It's interesting that you brought up 501c6 because the chambers are 501c6, such as your organization as well. And we have been omitted from the general PPP program, which is a grave omission, I would say, because organizations like ours, or like the VCB, or like the hospitality associations, are in need of help. Let me just make sure that we can discuss this in our guideline process. And also, I would also say that we've made efforts to try to incorporate the 501c6 in the next run that is, approved by the Congress. I don't know if it's been included or not, but they should have been included in the next run of PPP loan.
So just keep an eye on the guidelines that are going to be coming out for your relief fund. Okay, great. Thank you. Dan, how can a private citizen be involved in the relief fund selection process?
It's really an internal process right now. It's because of the quick turnaround that's necessary. We do use private citizens and what we just call, volunteers that serve on our other grant committees, like our Community Impact Grant Program. This program is being run internally just so that we can create this 3, 4, 5 day turnaround from the completion of the application to the approval. So unfortunately, there is not a way to participate in the relief fund grant process.
Okay, thank you. This question is for Frank. For the small business grant and loan, do independent contractors qualify? Small business owner with other independent contractors?
I would say my first reaction would say yes, because there is, when you look at what the county is doing, it's from 2 to 10 employees and it's a guideline. However, it omits, sole proprietorship, and I think we should include that in the guidelines as well.
I think that's a great add to the qualifications. I know we've had at the Business Council, we've had tremendous amount of self-employed and independent contractors reach out and say, what do I qualify for? So that's great news. Point of clarification for Dan, for the COVID-19 decline, do we call Laurel about reapplying, or do we assume this grant will be re-reviewed?
You should call Laurel. And it's or send her an email. We want to get, personal interaction and keep conversations going.
Okay, thank you. And I think probably this question would be to Cindy Merzon. Are there resources available for medium-sized businesses that employ 20 to 100 people?
Yes. Well, I say yes because the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Paycheck Protection Program opportunities will be opened up again The president signed the bill that was passed by Congress. We are still waiting for the details on when those portals will be opened up again, so watch closely for that information, but you would be able to apply through those options. So for PPP, you'd be able to apply through your business bank, and for SBA, you would be able to, for the economic injury disaster loan, you'd be able to apply specifically through the SBA's website. If you're struggling at all with any of that, give the SBDC a call, go to our website, SBDC, it'll be calcoastalsbdc.com, and you can request assistance there, register, and we'll be happy to help you with whatever is most appropriate for you.
Great, thank you. Frank, for the Chamber of Commerce grant, are new businesses eligible? I took over a business last year that has been around for over 20 years, but changed entity status.
I would say that the guidelines for that still in progress and need to take a look at that. You know, existing business that are under a new owner will probably be difficult to qualify because we want to make sure that we have historical knowledge about the management of the business. As you know, if you've been in that situation, things can change with the change of ownership. So we will probably discuss this. My gut feeling would say probably not.
Okay, thank you. We'll take just a few more questions. I want to make sure that we try to get as many in as possible. Interesting question for Frank. When will chamber grant applications be available? And if you are not a chamber member, will you be considered, or will chamber members be given first priority?
Okay, so let me repeat this. I think that it's open to every businesses in this time of crisis. Being a member or not a member does not make a difference. So it's very, very clear. We will open all of our resources to any business in our geographical area. Now, as far as the timing is concerned, I said mid-May. I would like to make sure everybody understands that we basically got funded about 2 days ago, and I still don't know this has actually been in the hands of the Community Foundation, but the decision was made. So we are still in process of forming the guidelines. I don't want to rush through this thing and make it, and botch it. I'm dealing with the committee and a lot of people that have been extremely taxed, let's say, for time and have a lot of knowledge in the grant making. I don't want to push them too hard. It's going to be done, and it's going to be done really well. Let's be patient. I know there is a lot of anxiety right now. Mid-May is what I target for.
Great, thank you. This question's for Cindy. The viewer wants to know, does the PPP prefer to fund those small businesses with employees? Will these programs help businesses like mine with 0 employees?
So the PPP is designed to keep employees working or keep employees to paid. And so, yes, they're looking for them for making sure that people are being employed. However, if you are an independent contractor, you are an employee of your business, and therefore you could apply for the PPP to get recovery of the pay that you're not able to pay yourself.
Great, thank you. Next question I'm going to ask both Cindy and Frank this question, just for the SBA side of it and for the local Monterey Bay Small Business Relief Fund. This viewer has not yet filed their 2019 taxes because of the extension. And so the question is, if we haven't completed current tax returns and we are sole proprietor, will we be able to compete for these grants or loans? Meaning they have their 2018, but not their 2019.
I can answer from a federal lender perspective. So everybody knows the SBDC is not the SBA. We're a resource agency that helps provide information on federal and state programs. So I can't make the decision for the SBA, but I can tell you how they make their decision. And essentially, lenders for both the PPP, which are private banks, and the SBA for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program are looking at the most recent tax return. If it happens to be 2018, then the next thing they're going to be interested in are your financial statements that take you through 2019. So they'll look at your tax return for 2018, and then they'll want to see a balance sheet and profit and loss statement for 2019. And in all likelihood may also ask for a current year-to-date profit and loss statement so they can see what your financial status is as of right now.
Great, thank you. This question's for Dan, and I think it's just a clarification of nonprofit. When you're talking about the eligibility of nonprofits, is it only 501c3s that you are accepting?
It is, but I guess the one caveat, as I mentioned before, would be if a C6, for instance, had developed some program, let's say distribution of mass, for instance, and then they would be considered, but it would not be for any sort of operating or stabilization. That it would have to be for monies that would support direct people working directly with COVID-related activities.
Great, thank you. This question's for Frank. What geographic areas will these grants cover?
Basically, Marina, Delray Oaks, Seaside, Monterey, Pacific Grove, Carmel Valley, and then the unincorporated areas such as Carmel Highlands and also Pebble Beach down to Big Sur. So the coastal area that we call Monterey Peninsula, Marina, to Big Sur to Carmel Valley.
So if I could, Frank, I think the money that we have so far, though, from the city of Monterey has to be dedicated to the city of Monterey. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So if we're able to grow the fund
Yes.
with other, gifts, either from foundations or individuals, then that money would be available to be granted to that geographic footprint that Frank just described. But the monies that we have so far, because they're from the city of Monterey, those are limited to the city of Monterey. But we've just started the process. We needed to wait until the city voted to make sure that the program can get started. We actually have a separate development committee on top of the grant committee where we are strategizing on messaging on how to attract gifts into the Small Business Relief Fund.
Excellent, thank you. One of the questions, I'm going to rephrase the question a little bit, but there was some concern about not covering Salinas in either of these. I know that the city of Salinas is working on a respective small business relief fund as well, just to answer the concerns of this particular individual. I also wanted to just throw the question to Darby over the county microloan program. Certainly, I know that there's certain funding set aside for different areas of the county. I'm wondering if you can speak to that, please.
So our program covers any business anywhere in Monterey County. Doesn't matter what city you're in or what area in the unincorporated parts of the county you're located in. We have set aside $200,000 for businesses from South County to apply for, but that we're only going to hold those funds until May 15th, and then those will go into the general pot to assist businesses anywhere. So if you're in Salinas right now, we can help you. Same thing, we can help in Monterey Peninsula areas up until the time the chamber gets their program up and running. So I hope that answers the question.
I think it does.
Hey, Kimberly, can I add on? We're a countywide organization, and I actually reached out to the Salinas Valley Chamber as well. And so Frank accepted our offer. I'm not judgmental about the fact that the Salinas Chamber did not, because they are just maybe organizing different set of programs. But if other parts of the county want to engage with us to stand up a similar program to what we're doing with the Monterey Peninsula Chamber, we are ready and we will work with them.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate the insight on that. The last question that we're going to take is to Cindy. If we have applied with a PPP with one bank but have not heard back, does it make sense to apply with a second bank to increase our chances?
So the first thing I would tell you is go to the bank with whom you applied and see if you can find out what the status of your application is, and whether or not they'll be able to submit it. If they were not, when the prior funding was available and closed, will they be able to submit it with the new funding allocations that become available on Monday? Most lenders will ask you, do you have another PPP application pending somewhere? If you do, they don't want to take it, so they don't want to be considering multiple applications from the same company. So I would not recommend you do that. First, talk to the business where you have a pending application.
Great, thank you. I think that concludes our portion of questions for today. Hopefully the viewers have really gotten some information that's very helpful to them, to their small business, to their nonprofit today. We certainly recognize these are uncertain times. Monterey County Business Council, the Monterey Chamber of Commerce, the Community Foundation, the Small Business Development Center, the County of Monterey, and the City of Salinas are all working very diligently to ensure that you get the information that you need and the resources you need to keep your business and your nonprofit going. I just want to say thank you very much to our partners today, and I want to also especially thank our presenters, Darby Marshall, the analyst for the County of Monterey's Economic Development and Housing Office, Frank Geisler, President and CEO of the Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, Dan Baldwin, President and CEO of Community Foundation of Monterey County, and Cindy Marzon, Director of Cal Coastal Small Business Development Center. And lastly, just as a reminder, I want to acknowledge that we are recording this webinar, and we will send you a link with the recording so that you can review today's class, and we will also send out the contact information for our speakers today. Thank you very much for your time, and we will see you next week. Take care.
Bye.